for being with us. I'm Dean Hebel, Executive Director of 10 at the Top. I think I know most of you, and I'm glad to see some familiar faces. Unfortunately, I haven't made it over to Union for the last couple months due to the virus, but hopefully we'll be able to get back up and traveling soon and get to see you guys in person in the near future. We have been doing these calls across the Upstate. This is our fourth one of 7 that we're doing with the non-urban counties. We're not right now doing Greenville, Spartanburg, and Anderson. We're going to connect with them when we're done with these calls. But we felt like as folks were getting back kind of to reopening or re-engaging within their communities, it would be a good time for us with 10 at the Top to get an understanding of what some of the issues and challenges with COVID-19, but just in general, are across the region, so that as we move forward, we can continue to serve as a connector around issues that are impacting you all, and maybe leverage some of the issues that are impacting multiple communities in the Upstate as we move forward. So we're doing these county listening tour, and the purpose of this call is to hear from you all. So we have a number of questions around a few different subjects, and we're going to ask a poll here in a minute to get your input. We're going to combine that with what we hear from the other counties, and then come up with kind of what the messages are across the region, and hopefully identify some ways we can support all of you individually and collectively as an Upstate. So we're going to have several members of our team asking questions, so I'm going to introduce them right now. We have Erin Oots, who coordinates our entrepreneurial ecosystem. I think some of you have met with her a number of times, and she was part of the workshop we did in Union last summer. Michael Hildebrand, who is the director of the Upstate Mobility Alliance. He joined us in January and has been doing a great job, and I think hopefully we'll be making a trip over to Union soon to be working with you guys around mobility and transportation. Justine Allen, who is our newest team member, joined us at the end of March, and yesterday was her first day actually in the office, though she's been with us for over 2 months. But she is coordinating our work groups, and is going to ask some questions around social service needs and challenges in a few minutes. And then Sharon Purvis, who is our outreach coordinator, is going to wrap us up here in a few minutes. So again, this is about hearing from you all, so we appreciate you taking the time to be with us. I'm going to start with a poll, and we have 6 questions, but they're all consistent in terms of they're around different areas. And the question is, when it comes to, and we start with social services and healthcare, but we move on, you'll see there are 6 of them. How do you feel your community's personal well-being needs? Well, let me read the first one. When it comes to social service and healthcare in Union County, how do you feel your community's personal well-being needs have been met? Rate from 1 to 10, and 1 being not met at all, and 10 being met totally. And then the rest of the questions are consistent to that. The second one is around the needs of manufacturing and large employers. The third one is around restaurants and retail stores. The fourth one is around non-franchises, small businesses, and entrepreneurs. The fifth one is around schools, colleges, universities. And then the last one is around the local and county governments, all on a scale of 1 for not being met and 10 for being met. So want to take a minute here and give you all a chance to please, and you need to, on the far right, scroll down to the questions after you've answered the first one. Just on the right side, you should be able to scroll and answer all the questions. So the polling is open. If you want to go ahead and start answering your questions, that would be great. And we'll take a minute or two here to get your responses. Can everybody see it? Ann, can you hear? I see you're unmuted. Are
Yeah.
You got it?
I'm doing it. I'm doing it now.
Everybody shake your head or give me a thumbs up that we're good. All right. We'll take a minute. We're starting to get some responses.
Dean, do we submit after each one, or do we wait until we complete and then submit?
I believe you wait until you have done all of them.
Okay, thanks.
Okay, by my count, we should have 4 or 5 more people coming. Okay, has everybody completed? We have 7. We probably should have 3 or 4 more if everybody is doing it who is not part of our team. All right, we're up to 9. That's good. So we're pretty close. I'm going to give it about 30 more seconds and then go ahead and end the polling. All right, so I'm going to share the results so everybody can see them. Let's go through the first question as it relates to social services and healthcare. It looks like we're pretty much in the range from 4 to 9, but the highest one is 8, so that's good. I think that people feel, it seems like, you know, at least we're in the tier of the needs being met. And we'll elaborate on that in a few minutes. In terms of manufacturing and large employers, we have a little bit of a split between 5 and 7 and 8. So 6 of you all give it a 7 or 8, and the other 3 at a 5. So we'll elaborate on that a little bit, Aaron, as well. The restaurants and retailers, this seems to be pretty consistent. Well, I don't know, we're ranging all the way from 3 to 9 there. So I look forward to hearing kind of that. And I think, you know, what I have seen in some of our smaller communities is this is a challenge, obviously because of population sizes in general. So I'm curious to get your input as it relates to that. Then the small businesses and entrepreneurs, this is another one. We seem to have a split, Aaron, between the 3s and 4s and the 6s and 7s. So that, you know, no one is ranging at the 9 and 10 end. So Aaron, when you talk, we can look at that a little bit more as well. Then the school systems, we seem to be mostly 6, 7, 8 range, which I think is pretty consistent across the region. So we'll hear a little bit more, and we appreciate having Ms. Bird on from the school systems and Annie representing USC Union as well. And then local governments, we're kind of all the way from 4 to 8, but 8 is the high range. So we're probably, the average is somewhere around a 6.5 in that range. So thank you for these. This will help us as we have this call today, and then as we try to quantify a little bit of how people are feeling about their communities. So with that, I'm going to, we'll start with some questions. The first one I have for you all is in terms of partnerships, local or regional. Have you guys started or been engaged as a community in a community collaboration around working on the issues related to the virus? And Justine, can you unmute everybody so we can give everybody a chance to talk on these questions? And you know, some of the counties we've been working with have created kind of task forces and things. Has anything like that been created for Union County? Catherine, maybe you can start, and we'll go from there.
As far as a task force, no, we've been working, partnering with different groups to provide some of the like cleaning material and mask and those kinds of things. We've also partnered with the COG in trying to find what funding is available to help with reimbursement of what's been spent out. So those are the kinds of things that we're partnering with around COVID-19. Is that what you're talking about or asking about?
Yes, but has there been anything? So it's really been more organic. There's not been a formal community task force to look at moving forward or anything around the economic impact. And you've been part of the one in Cherokee. Are they doing anything like this in Union?
Well, in Union, we've been trying to get Main Street Junction, and because the governor had not allowed events, they would not allow us to rent. We are now shooting for the 17th to get that site so we can have 6-foot distancing. And we are kind of kicking around re-energized Union COVID-19 recovery task force. I know in Cherokee County, we were able to have it at Limestone College because they have a big cafeteria there. So hopefully the 17th is going to work out. The primary things we've got to do is tap into some of that 1.7 billion that's going to be coming to the state to help out city and county government and some economic development activities and some small business recovery funds. So that will be the primary focus of that meeting on the 17th. And to have, you know, food service, retail, some manufacturing, some community leaders there so we can hear from them of what they think they need and how that recovery is going to look. We're probably looking at a couple of years to get back to the unemployment rate that we enjoyed during 2019.
Right. Good. Catherine, you mentioned the COG. Have there been other organizations, whether it be local or regional or state, that you guys have leaned on for support during this time? Anybody want to chime in?
Other than leaning on Rita for some help in some other areas, and Nikki as far as the workforce goes. But other than that, no. And Ann mentioned well, I guess we'll talk about restaurant and retails later, but I was going to say that we did do a conference call, a Zoom meeting, Frank did, with the restaurant owners. And that went well, but we'll talk about that later when you get to that area. But no, mainly the COG. And as I said, locally, those partnerships or those collaborations.
Great. Well,
hey, this is Nikki Burgess. I do know that the local DSN board, they were able to get some supplies from the national stockpile. So I thought I'll just throw that out there. Rob Frame was able to connect them and get them some things they needed for their consumers.
Perfect. Thank you.
Lockhart Power also donated some masks to
That's
the
right.
workforce board. Yeah.
That's right. I forgot about them. And as a matter of fact, Eric at EMT director, he's responsible for overseeing all the supplies. And so we went out and got plenty of masks and cleaners and Lysol sprays. And he's the, I guess, the drop-off point and distributor of those supplies that we've had to take to different businesses and organizations. So that, I guess, would be another partnership.
Perfect, thank you. You mentioned the restaurants and businesses and economic development, and with that, it's a good segue. Aaron, I'll turn it over to you to ask some specific questions around those areas.
All right, very good. And it's good to see everybody. Thanks so much for joining today and for sharing your thoughts and all the things that y'all been doing. But I am going to start off by going backwards just a little bit. So before COVID-19 happened and everything shut down, what would you say was the overall or general health of your businesses, your small businesses and your entrepreneurs? Like, were they growing? Were they average? Were they below average? Were they robust? What would you say was the general health of them?
Is that directed at anyone?
Anyone? Just
okay.
Yeah.
Well, I'll start off by saying I believe that they were growing. Several of the small businesses were doing quite well, and then this happened, and it kind of knocked them off their feet.
Yeah, they were getting skilled labor, but that was a crisis everywhere. And now, you can't put but so many people in a plant at 6 foot distancing. So to fully recover, it's going to take a lot of innovation on their part to get back to full operations. And as far as the entrepreneurship, unfortunately, there isn't an incubator in Union like in Cherokee County and other places. Hopefully one day there'll be a small business startup center there.
good. And Catherine, were you going to say something?
Well, no, I'm looking. I hate we can't hear from Rita. She's busy writing away. And I guess everybody can see that.
Yeah, I have animals and they're being super annoying today.
That's right. This is informal. I'm back in the office.
Okay.
Some of the others know that my cat like to be part of the Zoom meeting, so it's okay.
Yeah. So, but yes, Rita, I see you've said that you've been able to work with the county COVID-19 task force, and that y'all were growing, adding businesses in Carlisle. That's exciting. That's good. And the SBDC has been there to help too. So, okay, good. Thank you. Thank you for adding that. So speaking of SBDC, Rita, I know you've been so helpful to the business owners. So what are the kind of go-to resources in Union County for businesses, entrepreneurs, startups? Anybody want to pipe in?
You have the Small Business Development Center. They come in periodically, but they're not a constant presence there, and they will do workshops occasionally. And I think they'll take meetings by appointment.
Okay, good. Well, Catherine, I know you're a good resource.
Well, we've had people come into the county asking for assistance, and we do refer them out to SBDC. When we were talking to the restaurant owners, and I know John is going to say something about this because I'm so proud that Upstate Bank was able to provide so many loans. I'm not sure whether they were PPPs or EID, whichever, but they did a tremendous amount of lending and helping their clients through that. And I know John probably worked 12, 15 hours a day trying to take care of those clients. So we're real proud of that because it helped a lot of our businesses stay, it helped keep them afloat. And that was a tremendous help.
Good, good. And along those lines, what are they doing to also continue to educate the business owners on how to best be prepared for reporting for those loans? Any?
As far as the forgiveness side of the PPP loans?
Yes.
We are actually planning to have a meeting later this week and get a lot more guidance on it.
Okay.
anybody who's remotely familiar with how this process worked, it was a constantly evolving thing. The final application they went with was about the 4th different version that came out in 3 days or so. So we feel like, it's, I don't want to say this the right way, but sometimes it's hard to trust the federal government, but right now they're telling us to trust them and do a lot of actions in good faith. So customers are doing that, businesses are doing it, banks are doing it, and we hope that it is going to work out well for everyone. There's several rules that have come out explaining forgiveness, and I think 19 pages on one, 20-something pages on another. So we've been doing some reading, trying to get ready to start that whole process in the next week or two.
Good. So will y'all do that through webinars, through emails, mails and letters in the mail, one-on-one meetings?
A lot of it, as far as internally, we'll probably do it on conference call and webinars. We hope to get back to seeing our coworkers again one day instead of on the computer. But through with customers, we probably will call a lot of them. Most of ours, we're still closed in person, face to face. So we'll do, one-on-one meetings with a client, not having 10 or 20 people come by at a time.
Okay. All right. Good.
John, if I could ask another question around that, and Aaron, I apologize, you may be getting ready to ask this, but we've heard in some of the other counties and also in other meetings I've been on with nonprofits and small businesses is the challenges that many of them didn't have really good record keeping and books. And so that was a challenge for applying for some of these loans. Did you see that issue with some of your clients?
We did. We had a few who I think some businesses learned a very difficult lesson that keeping up with all their financial records is vital. The segment of business I saw hurt the most were your self-employed, because your Schedule C employees, if they had a net operating loss, they wouldn't qualify. Well, most people don't, operate to lose money every year, but there are different things that get added back, and there are non-cash expenses like depreciation. So some of those, while they probably were some of the ones who needed it the most, couldn't get qualified for it. But yeah, a lot of companies, some of them were pestering accountants to get some things done quickly and last minute. The second round of PPP funding, I think, saved and helped a lot of businesses. That first round came and went very quickly. But I think that second round, the people who were able to hang on and survive until it started felt safer then.
Okay.
And the unemployment mess that, trying to get help with unemployment and, having to wait 5-6 hours on the phone, that was a real nightmare. And I think a lot of those self-employed who didn't apply for PPP could have, gotten a good chunk of money from the unemployment if they had applied for it. I know the beautician that I helped, she got a $4,600 check because she did apply for it. And I do think even if they didn't apply for it, if we could get them applying for it now, they could maybe go back to April 1st and at least get the money for that part. And they can, now that dude's hired, I think 450 additional people to work on unemployment insurance, it should be an easier process. That'll be something we'll talk about too at the task force. But I'm worried that if we can't get them to do it immediately, that dude's going to close that door on getting those funds out.
And do you think, Dan, that the problem there is because people aren't aware of them, or what is the problem as to why it's happening so slow?
Well, I think you have several factors. Maybe they just didn't trust the government. Maybe they thought the recovery was going to, things would open back up sooner, so they kept waiting and waiting, and then it didn't open up. Or I know some did look at the PPP, and then it was a little bit of a mess initially. And I know the Small Business Association didn't call some back, and they were waiting and waiting, so they didn't apply for unemployment. So I just think there are multiple factors, but if we can get to those individuals, your 1099 workers at your nail salon, your beauty shops, your dentists, those type people, and go ahead and get those applications in, I think it would be beneficial to bring those funds back to the county, because they're not, it's not going to hurt anybody's unemployment tax right now anyway, because it is federal funding.
Good, Anne, thank you so much. Catherine, were you going to say something else?
I was going to say something earlier that had to do with some of the owners, the small business owners that couldn't get the loans. They were frustrated because they needed some help. They needed someone to walk them through. They didn't have the paperwork. They, as someone said earlier, they didn't keep good records. And I know 2 small business owners, I haven't checked with them lately, but they said that if they didn't get the loans, they would have to close their doors for good. So, those are the kinds of things, the frustration in trying to get help, be it PPP or the disaster or even unemployment. So there was a lot of frustration around that. And then we had so many people coming, wanting help, asking about their unemployment and the frustration of having to hold for so long and not getting a live person. And I mean, it goes on and on. So there was a lot of frustration around that, but there was not a lot that I could do.
Okay. All right. Well, good. Well, thanks to everyone for that. So we have talked a little bit about, well, the small businesses and entrepreneurs and how they were impacted. Obviously the traffic, not being able to serve, have people in their restaurants, the nail salons, things like that. Dennis, as you said, and were there any other specific things that we haven't mentioned that held the businesses back or the entrepreneurs back? I think we've covered it all. Okay. All right. Good. Thank you. So then, so looking forward, and Anne, you alluded to this earlier. So how quickly do you think that Union will recover? Businesses.
One thing I was kind of surprised at is at how many, there were quite a few administrative positions that were there were a lot of claims and healthcare, but we do know in Union County that 80% of those who of the claims were job attached, meaning that there was a date that said, yes, they are furloughed. However, we are going to bring them back. And there was a date in the system. However, we know that date is kind of a made up date because people didn't know. So some people will be brought back sooner than others. But, you had like 830 manufacturing claims. And you've had 169 healthcare. We know those healthcare are going to be job attached more than likely. It was just a matter of time of those coming back. Manufacturing, it'll probably take a while to get everybody back. But when you look at your food service, only 138 filed claims. That's why I think there's a lot more opportunity out there. 119 in retail filed. So there's a lot more opportunity, I think, to get people to go ahead and get in that UI system to get those funds. And Catherine, that's something you and I and Nikki can talk about and maybe do some outreach on that to try to get that word out. We could even do a group class if we have to on getting that unemployment claim filed. But I do think with 80% being attached, that is a bit of good news if they, eventually bring those individuals back into the workforce.
All right, well, that's good. So as the state has been reopening, are you seeing your restaurants and retail stores reopen? Yes. Oh, Catherine, you're on mute. Oh, let's see. Nikki says absolutely.
I'm unmuted now.
Okay.
So yes, coming back strong. That's
okay.
what I've been able to see, especially some of the restaurant owners. Now they have said that they will probably have to do a slight increase because their vendors have increased the prices of their supplies. But yes, coming back. And that's a good sign for Union.
All right.
There's another issue too there, Aaron, that we're hearing is food sourcing is becoming more difficult for restaurants, especially when it comes to meats. It's trickling down now to the stores too.
And when we were on the call with the restaurants, it was amazing to see how well they shared with each other who they were getting their supplies from, because one, let's say a vendor stopped supplying a certain meat, if you will. And then one of the other owners said, well, hey, use my guy because my guy is so-and-so. So just to have them own and hear how they were willing to network and help each other, that was a wonderful thing. It was not like a competition. It was, hey, I'm going to help you succeed. And that was a beautiful thing.
Right.
There was an issue with Waffle House that Catherine and I had talked about because they weren't supplying their employees
Jeff.
with PPE.
How are you?
They were having to go buy
How
their
you
own
feeling?
mask.
Good. I'm good.
Catherine, did anything ever get
Yes, and
worked out?
thank you, Nikki, for bringing that up because I forgot about it. But that was a great thing that Nikki overheard what was happening at Waffle House. So again, I went over to Eric, to the EMT, and went through the supplies and was able to take back over 30 face masks for their employees because they were serving food and they were on their last little toss away face mask, and some of them didn't have the mask. So we were able to supply that. So thank you, Nikki. That was a great thing.
They were having to walk across the street to Murphy's gas station and buy their own mask. And we know that they don't really make a lot of money. So I appreciate you doing that, Catherine.
And thank you for being observant like that.
Always.
We're going to go ahead and move on. Aaron, I would say, I do think, and, you know, some of the comments from Rita and Nikki and others indicate, you know, some of the things we've been talking about through the entrepreneur group around the rural communities might be an opportunity to connect again in Union and try to move forward as they move you know, into the future, trying to continue to cultivate small businesses.
Good.
So I think there's a good opportunity there, but I want to move on to the infrastructure questions and Michael to ask it at this point.
And thank you, everyone.
Hey, good morning. I'm Michael Hildebrand. I'm the director of the Upstate Mobility Alliance. Catherine, good to see you this morning. And I was making plans to get over to Union, and COVID hit, and so it kind of pushed me back a little bit, but I will be getting over there very soon. So I want to just ask a couple of questions around infrastructure and specifically transportation. And I've heard this morning as industry starts to open back up, you know, one of the things that we've seen in other places is that lower paying service jobs often have issues with access to transportation, and lack of transportation is often a barrier for employment. So I'm curious, you know, has that been a challenge for some of your employers being able to get workers to jobs? And then if so, how have your employers or your community addressed that challenge? And that's open to anybody.
I think that's one thing, Michael. I know in Spartanburg, on our recovery task force here, we're going to ask for $250,000 for transportation for Spartanburg County out of that 1.9 billion or whatever. And so I think that's something, Catherine, we would want to look at for Union County for the future, to look at some transportation money.
I was muted and couldn't respond. With the transportation, you know, when we did a survey, it's probably been a couple of years now, I was surprised because employers didn't feel that that was a great need. And I'm almost thinking they felt that way because they were afraid we'd ask them for some money. But we do know that it is a problem here in Union County. We even have people walking on the bypass, which we know is dangerous because there are no sidewalks there, but walking to and from work. We have people in some of our municipalities such as Carlisle, Lockhart, Jonesville that need transportation into the city. So we're working on it. We know that there's some funding available. It's just that it's taking a lot longer than we had anticipated to pull this all through. So we're slowly getting there.
In our SC Works office in Union, we do see this as a barrier with individuals probably almost every day.
Okay. And, you know, is it is it just lack of transportation in general, or is it something a little bit more specific, Nikki?
I would say that there's probably multiple barriers there.
Okay.
Yeah, most definitely. Most of the time I would say that it's more than just transportation.
Sure.
Because we do see, those that have little to no income, and there's a lot more reasons behind that than just not having, a car or a driver's license.
Right. So what are some of those other challenges that your community is trying to understand as people try to get back to work? So Rita, I see you said literacy. Is that from an educational standpoint, or is it financial literacy, or is it all of the above?
Okay, it's a very complicated issue in Union, and it is all those types of literacy. Another major barrier for us is access to internet. I know that's something that we're working on now. The library has been working with the county. I know Catherine's working on that with the COG. But ultimately, when you're talking about people doing things and getting transportation, communication is our biggest barrier, and that really is affected by literacy. So communicating that there is an option, there is a resource. If somebody has barriers to comprehending that it's free or available to them, then they're not going to use it.
Sure.
And I think that also ties back with the unemployment claims is, the lack of literacy.
Anything else?
Well, even literacy and even awareness, because at one point United Way was just trying to find out where to use the money. They had funds that had been allocated for Union County and nobody making claims to use them, to use the benefits, to get different resources and all that they needed.
Sure. Ann, were you saying something? You're on mute. I'm sorry.
Muting everybody.
I'm just saying, a concern I've always had is that the GED program is so far out of the inner city of Union County. So transportation to and from there, I think, could increase the numbers of individuals going there, and probably even increase the numbers of individuals attending USC Union and SCC if there was transportation, especially from like the Lockhart, Carlisle, Santuc, Buffalo, Jonesville areas to get to those locations.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Kind of backing off of Ann and Rita's comment regarding the literacy, I haven't really received, our office hasn't received many calls from Union necessarily, but those who called from like more so Greer and Spartanburg are older or do not have access, like Rita was saying, to internet or a computer, so they don't even know how to navigate the basics of, so like Ann was saying, maybe a class of some sort to where they just had that basics of how to navigate through the system, because they're mediating everyone or having everyone go through that online site versus a voice-to-voice interaction. It's just really difficult to do so when you're not able to physically show someone how to do it, and they are not pre-exposed to what an interface of a computer even looks like, really. So it's just, yeah, all of those factors so far from calls that I've received or our office has received has been like a number one complaint. They don't know how to use the computer.
Yeah.
And it's amazing, even the hairdressers and all, they really don't use a computer on a daily basis. So I was surprised at how many of them really don't, or they're not computer literate. They can use their iPhone, but to do an application for unemployment on an iPhone would be impossible.
That'd be tough. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So how would this group rank lack of availability to Wi-Fi? Is it a minor issue, a major issue?
Major.
Major.
Union, even at Sims Middle School, it's almost impossible to connect. If I had my computer, I remember Nicoya and I did with the STEM program, we couldn't get it going.
So I'll turn it over to Justine. The Wi-Fi issue is a great segue into Justine, who's going to talk about the social service needs and challenges. So thank you.
Hey everyone. Yes, we'd love to hear about what the school districts were up to toward the end of the year there as far as social services for children and possibly their families. We've heard a lot from the other counties, but we'd love to hear what went on in Union. making sure that, here we go, Rita.
I'm sorry, wait. I was responding to Dean's thing in the chat.
There it is. Okay, so we're talking about schools. And so for example, in Greenville County, the school buses went out to, I don't know how many anymore, but tons of school buses went out to different spots, to schools, social centers in Greenville County to provide Wi-Fi for those who didn't have it in their homes, meals, bringing in the bus with meals that families could pick up throughout.
Well, Dr. Bird's on here, and she's with the district, so she may be able to talk more about the district and internet.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah.
I would love to
Before
chime in.
I jump in, I think Dr. Bird would probably be best to talk first.
I was trying to unmute myself and I couldn't figure it out. There were a few things I wanted to say. I wanted to go back to the adult literacy. We're excited. The Union Reads Committee is excited to partner with SCC this upcoming year to offer free reading classes for parents in our schools, so that it can be more accessible. So the only requirement will be is that you have a connection to a child in a school, and we can provide those services during the day within the schools. So we'll probably choose one location. Buffalo Elementary School seems to be our highest poverty rated school. We'll probably choose Buffalo, and we'll offer those courses during the school day to help people increase and improve their literacy skills. Another component that I was thinking about was financial literacy. It's so very important for people to be able to learn, and have resources to manage the money that they do have. So that's a different component. When we think of literacy, we're thinking always about reading, but financial literacy is very important for people who are struggling financially. But going back to your questions about the school district, this year we served right at 15,000 meals during the COVID-19 extended school closure. It was 14,947 meals over the last 11 weeks. So it was a total of quite a few students that we served, and we served them each day. We would send those meals out by bus into the communities, and our teachers, as well as our assistants and our food services and transportation department, they all pitched in to get those meals to our students. We did not put the Wi-Fi buses out. That was a financial strain for us. When you run those, the bus has to run the entire time that Wi-Fi is accessible. So when you set those there, you have to think about paying someone to man the bus, as well as gas that it takes to fuel the bus for the day. So that was an option that we really couldn't afford to do. But I know someone mentioned about our Wi-Fi. Our Wi-Fi is pretty solid in our schools. It's only when you come into the schools with an external device that's not ours that you will probably have problems accessing. But our children are pretty much we are one-to-one for grades 6 through 12. And what one-to-one means is each student has a device that the district provides them that they take home daily. And this upcoming year, we're hoping to become one-to-one in our elementary schools as well. It has been a very big learning curve for us. We are very excited to get school started back in August whenever we get a chance to do so. Many of you may have heard, but there's talk about bringing students from kindergarten to 8th grade back 5 days early. We feel hopeful that that probably will happen. This summer, the State Department of Education has given us some federal funding to bring in early learners, our kindergarten through 3rd grade. So we have programs for all of our students all year long. The 6-12 programs are merely summer school virtual programs, but our K-5, we're trying and hoping to do a face-to-face camp in July at Buffalo Elementary School for all 4 of our elementary schools.
Great, thank you.
Can I ask a question? Are you guys looking at staggering kids as they go back to school? I know that's been a talk in other areas where you won't bring them all back on the same days. I know childcare is such an issue up here. 50% of the childcare centers are still closed. And
there's talk about that, and there are a lot of creative ways to do it. We are waiting for the State Department to give us the instructions before we make any definite decisions. And one of the main things that the state is talking about, and I alluded to it earlier, is bringing kids back 5 days early. So for us, the clincher will be July. If we're able to, if they allow us to host a face-to-face camp in July, we are very hopeful that we'll be back in school in August. But if that face-to-face camp cannot happen in July, we are not hopeful that it will be face-to-face in August.
Annie,
I do think childcare is going to be another issue to deal with if they have to stagger the schools, because that means parents who work, somebody's going to have to stay home, either find a family member to keep children at the daycare centers, or if there's another spike in COVID.
Yes. Yes,
And
indeed.
Annie, did you have a comment?
Well, yeah, I was just going to follow up, like when y'all were through talking about the union schools. I was just going to comment about what our campus is doing right now. And so y'all kept talking about the staggering and everything, and that's one of our issues. So like right now we're at phase 1, so we're just bringing in 30% of necessary staff and faculty if they have to come on campus. The dean is pushing that, basically if you can work from home, he'll see you in August. But right now we're having all these weekly meetings to see, we've got these classes, some of them are even held in our auditorium. And so, how can we, stagger those classes? There's a lot of issues that we're having to address right now, especially with, with the safety and people wanting to come in and pay by cash. And, there are a lot of issues going on right now. So, and our campus is not allowed to open to any of the public right now. And that's a Columbia rule. And, you at the union, they're always, whatever we can do for anyone in the public, we open our doors no matter what. And, it's just killing us a little bit that we can't offer any type of assistance, for the public right now, just due to Columbia. But hopefully September, October, we can, go back to normal or whatnot and start allowing some type of public usage. But right now they're just saying staff 30% phase 1, and then phase 2 will be 60% of necessary staff members. And then I guess mid-August is when everyone will come back.
Great, thank you. Could we quickly cover food? We talked a little bit about the schools providing food for children. Will that continue throughout the summer? And then can we talk about seniors a little bit and anyone else who's fallen through the cracks?
Dr. Burr, what is the plan for the county over the summer in terms of food, providing food for the kids?
If you are a social media person, you can look on our social media page. Last week, we put a flyer out about a food service for our children that individual families had to sign up for that will actually ship the meals to the homes, so that it alleviates us from having to bring in workers during the summer. I'm looking for the flyer now so I can tell you a little bit more about it. It is called, give me 1 second. It's called Meals to You Can Help, and it's free. And it's through Baylor. And the way it works, that you sign your child up, you go to a website called mealstoyou.org, and you sign your child up from Friday, May 22nd. They had until May 29th to sign up for the whole summer. And they will actually mail the meals to you. And I think it's 2 meals a day. So that's a really neat program that we were able to become a part of free of charge. And we're excited. They're partners with the USDA. And we're excited to be able to offer that to our community and all of South Carolina. Many people are taking advantage of it. Then you just have to have a physical address. If you live in an apartment complex, you just need to put the apartment number, and those meals are shipped directly to you. It's breakfast and lunch daily.
Great, thank you.
I was also going to add a comment. I have 3 kids that attend Union County schools, 2 with all honors classes. So it was a little hard to get adjusted, but I think the district did a very great job of transitioning, and the teachers as well.
Thank
It was a
you.
struggle. It was a struggle at times because you got having to stay on top of kids while working and everything else, but we did get through it. Hallelujah. So y'all did a good job.
Thank you so very much, Ms. Burgess. It was challenging. Our teachers came together in a matter of 3 days, a weekend. They left their classrooms on March 13th, thinking they would return on Monday, March 16th. That did not happen. They were asked to develop a 10-day lesson plan over the weekend. They did do that. And from there, they haven't been back. Well, of course, now they've been back and they've cleaned their classrooms out, but it was hectic. It was hectic to transfer from a face-to-face learning environment to a virtual learning environment 100%. We struggled, we did, but we made it. Thank God we made it, and we're looking forward to improving our efforts so that if this happens again, we definitely will be better equipped. But the hurdle that someone mentioned earlier, the whole internet hurdle, internet connectivity, that's a huge hurdle for our community. And there are people that live in rural areas of our community that can afford Wi-Fi, but it's not accessible at their homes as well. So not only is it people who are struggling to purchase the Wi-Fi, but there are people that live in areas that is not accessible. So it's a hurdle for us.
I know personally for me, I don't mind sharing. We live close to Santuc, so I'm out in the country, and I pay about $75 a month for Wi-Fi. So, I mean, not many people can really afford to do that.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought that up, because that's something that's been very consistent. We've heard across the entire region and all the counties we've talked to so far. It is, a combination of both access to the internet in certain places, but also the cost is prohibitive for some folks. So, I do think that internet will be viewed and seen more as a utility moving forward, and what that does for rural communities will be interesting. But I think it's more than just an access issue. It is also a cost issue, and I do think that's going to be important to discuss. Real quick, Justine, Rita is going to talk very quickly about seniors, and then we'll move on and let Sharon wrap us up. But Rita, if you want to mention real quick about what's being done specifically for seniors.
Sure. So Catherine, obviously jump in, because this has been a joint effort. The biggest issue that we have dealt with recently was the senior farmers market nutrition program, Vouchers. Catherine got with the Council on Aging and got with us at the library, and ended up having the library staff, and actually at least with the farmers market, fielded over 100 calls in a week, which for us at the library is quite a few phone calls. So I know that they're in other places that doesn't sound like a lot of calls, but for us that was a lot, because I have one person usually that's answering phones on any given day. So one person gets stuck answering quite a few calls. And then, so we worked on that, getting the seniors signed up, and I will go ahead and say, having talked to some of the seniors, the literacy level of our seniors seem to be quite low. I mean, I struggled with the application. You have to ask questions like gender, are you Hispanic, and what is your race? And I was surprised how many people didn't know how to answer those questions. So just as an FYI, we actually have an AmeriCorps Financial Stability Navigator at the library too, and she's working on meal distribution. There's Meals on Wheels. There's several other organizations that provide meals to people in need in Union. And then our person is also working on getting food to distribute through Ruth's Gleaning and the food share program that's out of Packlet. The first week she said she did 20 boxes, and then the next distribution she's looking at doing 100. So we do know that there's a high need there. And then the library actually has like a compiled list of resources, including all of the food banks on our website. So we try to keep track of who's distributing food in case you guys need a reference point to get started. And I know Catherine is pretty well tied into many of those agencies.
And adding to what Rita just said with the seniors, the problem with trying to get them registered to receive I think it's $25 in vouchers to get fresh fruit and vegetables at the farmer's market. And normally they're about 400 to receive those, but this year to register is a lot different. They had to register online, and as it has been stated, the illiteracy, as well as not being able to use computers, as well as not having Wi-Fi, adequate Wi-Fi. So a lot of them probably were not registered, and the deadline was yesterday. So they're going to miss out on having fresh vegetables and fruit that was free to them. And then another problem as far as the Wi-Fi and computer and lack of knowing how to use computers, we're trying to register as many people as possible for the census. And so trying to communicate with them and get them out and get them registered and getting them online, you know, it's just a problem. And thank God that the library is around to kind of back things up for us.
Thank
That's
you.
what's happening.
And I'll just jump in on internet. We have been working really hard at the library with the county over the last several years to develop a legitimate strategy for broadband expansion. Providing hotspots in the community is a patch. It's not a long-term solution because usually those devices don't meet a lot of different standards. When Dr. Bird talked about the quality of the internet at the schools, that's federally regulated. Internet's at the schools, K-12 and public libraries in the state and nationally, there is a standard that they have to adhere to. And every location in South Carolina has 100 megabytes per second fiber internet. And so we've been working with the county on how to leverage public library resources to have access to the federal funding to be able to begin to expand the broadband infrastructure. And another thing that we've been working on is getting funding. We've received several grants at this point that we're working on implementing to put out hotspots in the community and make sure that they're managed, because the other issue is that if you're providing public internet, you need to have some sort of management of that network to make sure that the network is safe, make sure it's SIPA compliant, and you know, make sure that it's working. And so being able to manage internet throughout the county is another barrier. And so like I said, we've been working on grants, we've been working with the county. I know the COG is working on this too. And I know that there's some big conversations at the state about broadband, but it's a really complicated issue to get internet throughout a county and make sure that it's actually quality internet.
Yes,
And that is so true, Rita, because I don't know if you noticed a few minutes ago, but I was kicked off the internet. Wi-Fi went down, so I was off, and then I had to call in. But it is just crazy and it's frustrating. So I'm here in Lockhart, and the broadband is just not powerful, not strong enough here.
And
Yes,
as I said
definitely.
earlier, that is an issue, you know, that we're hearing consistently across the entire upstate. And Rita is right. It is, I think, becoming a bigger issue at the state and national level, and hopefully that will be something that is, you know, is a lasting outreach from all of this, is the understanding of just how critical internet and access to it is for all of our residents for multiple reasons, as you guys have mentioned. This has been great conversation, and we really appreciate it. This is exactly what we want. If I know we're right on time, but if we can hang on for a minute or two, I'm going to turn it over to Sharon and let her wrap us up with a couple kind of outreach questions looking at next steps and how to move forward. So Sharon, I'll turn it over to you.
Needs to unmute. Oh, there we go. So one of the questions, you know, Dean talked about collaborations and partnerships, and that's been a big, I know that people are discovering new partnerships, and I'm wondering if there's anything that you feel like would still be helpful if that you wish could have been formed, any kind of a partnership or collaboration. Anyone? Justine, you might need to just unmute everybody. Nobody has anything there. Are there any types of resources that you have seen in other places that you feel like would be helpful in Union County?
Sharon, I'm going to jump in here.
Yes.
So
Hi, Rita.
somebody else is welcome to, but since there was silence. I would say that we have a couple of good task forces that are in the works right now. Things kind of got slowed down because of COVID, but the Union Reads Initiative and the Public Health Task Force, I think those are some of the biggest efforts happening right now. There's obviously still room for improvement with that, and making sure that we're really impacting the entire county. But I think over the last year, there's been some major steps in those activities. In terms of resources that we need in Union, the one that I've been advocating for at the state level and trying to secure grants for is both resource coordination and case management. We have almost no case management in Union. When United Way was having issues with getting people to take advantage of their resources, part of it is that there's not relationships or trust in place. I know that the district could use some external support too, in the form of case management, helping make sure that the families are getting the support they need when they're not in the school environment. And so that's what I would say is a priority for us if you're looking at trying to figure out how to move the entire county forward.
Okay. Thank you for that, Rita. And one other that you sort of touched on, are there other things that have been ongoing in Union County that you feel like are on the back burner and you're wanting to ramp them back up again?
One thing I'll ask real quick, Catherine, I know y'all have been working on a comprehensive plan for the county with the COG. What is the status of that?
Frank actually had hoped that it was complete by now, but it seems like it's on the back burner. We're working toward it. We will meet, the commissioners will meet again in a week or so, and we're trying to finalize it and have something in Frank's hand by mid-July. But it's still being worked on, and it's a 2-year plan.
What I would offer to that, Catherine, and I've mentioned this to Frank and others, is us and of course COG and others, our planners group and others are available to help as you guys move from adopting the comprehensive plan to actually implementation. That's the real critical piece. So any support that we can provide or expertise in certain areas that we can connect you with from across the region, we certainly are available to do that. And I think Michael with the mobility piece is indicated he's going to reach out and be engaged with you also. I think, identifying where there's opportunities for connections with others, please keep letting us know what you see as opportunities there.
Are there any plans for, I know you're going to have probably children who have had a pretty big summer slide. Are there any plans for recovery of those who've lost some education level over the summer?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
The school district, the state of South Carolina has given us some federal funds. We call them ARC funds, ARC. And it's an acronym. I can't think of what it stands for right now, but it's additional funding for kindergarten through 3rd grade to provide some enrichment opportunities in math and ELA. They will pay for us transportation. They will pay for one administrator. They will pay for teachers, one guidance counselor, and one nurse to serve. That's the face-to-face camp that I was talking about earlier.
Okay, gotcha.
And that is for kindergarten to 3rd grade. Our district already had in place a system for 4th and 5th grade. We're doing a STEM camp for 4th and 5th grade. So our middle and high school students are doing more of enrichment for promotion to the next grade level. So they're participating in credit recovery and some virtual summer school using an Odyssey-ware platform that we use frequently in our credit recovery lab to recover any credits that they may have not earned this year for high school to move to the next grade level. And middle school for students that weren't successful and did not complete the year, they're in a 3-week program right now, online summer school virtual from 8 to 12, Monday through Thursday. We had 15 students from Sims log on yesterday and about 15 from Jonesville. The way it works though, we're rotating them in and out. So that's not the total complete list. It's a credit recovery type process. So they go through, there's a certified teacher that works with them to help them with the lessons that they're struggling with. And they have to obtain mastery to be promoted to the next grade. So,
and if there's any positive around that, is that that is not just an issue in a Union County or our rural, communities. That's an issue across the board. My wife was teaching in Greenville County. That's been a concern there as well about, kids falling back because of what's happened over the last couple months. So as Dr. Bird indicated, there are some holistic strategies to address that issue. So I think it will be something that is top of mind as they move into the new school year, and not just the back burner issue. So if there is a positive to that, it's that it is something that that is having to be addressed at all school levels. Correct, Dr. Bird?
that is correct. It's a national, worldwide issue. Our students were already behind, so they've fallen even further behind. The State Department has also given us, well, it's federal money. I keep referring to the State Department, but that's the avenue in which we receive it. But we all receive CARES Act funds, and there are 12 allowable usages for those funds. So our district received $1.2 million to fill some gaps, some learning gaps. A lot of that will go for infrastructure type things. We want to, like I talked about earlier, becoming one-to-one beyond 6-12. Right now, our grades 6th through 12th grade are one-to-one. That additional money will go towards replenishing some of those, we call them machines, but of course they're laptops, they're Dell laptops, to replenish some of those Dell laptops, to refurbish some of them so that our younger kids in grades K through 5 will have access to them. The goal, I think, I may be speaking a little too soon, but the goal is for 3-5 to be one-to-one and K2 to have access to laptops when needed in the classroom. So we're hoping to expand that. We have to do some virtual learning for our teachers, some professional development training for teachers to become more effective virtual teachers. Ms. Burgess will appreciate that, and any of the parents we have online, you will appreciate that. As you know, it has been a huge learning curve for us this year. So funding throughout the summer will be for that, and also to go back and fill some learning gaps, meaning fourth quarter, the last 9 weeks of the school year, we missed the whole 9 weeks. We had just begun our fourth quarter. So that's 9 weeks of instruction that we'll start the year off without. So we're going to pull teachers and teams of teachers in to really look at what's essential from one grade to the next grade, so that we can start the year and fill those gaps for our students before we even begin with the new year's curriculum. So there are plans in place all summer. We're developing plans to bring teachers in to work on those, we call them learning progressions, work on those learning progressions so that our children or our teachers can be ready to go day one.
That's great. Thanks so much, Dr. Bird.
When does your new superintendent start?
July 1.
Okay, thank you.
I was going to make a comment just on behalf of well, not behalf of United Way, but as far as individuals in Union being aware of the services that they provide. I kind of tested it out myself, and I did the online form for services, and it took maybe 4 to 5 days for a representative to call me back to see what my needs were. And I know that they're probably busy, but I'm sure that people, their need is a lot higher, it's greater than that. They don't really have time to sit around and wait when their rent is due and things like that. So I just wanted to make that comment. And that may be part of the reason why Union residents aren't really using the services, because they get frustrated because they're not getting the assistance, and they're just like the heck with it. So just wanted to put that out there.
That's good feedback, Nikki. Thank you. We'll pass that along to the United Way folks. It is past, it's almost 10 after, and thank you so much for all of your time and your comments. And we will be compiling your comments today. They'll be in a couple of days. They'll be up on our website. Dean will send out a wrap up And then we're going to take, once we finish all of the workshops, we've got Abbeville and Oconee and somebody else. Pickens still to go this week. And then once we do that, and we'll kind of sift through all of everybody's comments and see where we can find some synergy with you know, what everybody is, some commonalities of what the issues are, and then we'll move on from there, go from there, and see what we can do as a region. So thank you all for joining us today, and have a great week, and we'll talk to you soon.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.